My name is Dana. I'm 34 years old, and for a long time, I believed that if you gave love, it would eventually return to you. I met Jack 7 years ago in a hospital waiting room. My father had just suffered a heart attack, and I was sitting there clutching a styrofoam cup of stale coffee, trying not to fall apart. Jack sat beside me, said nothing for a while, and then just offered a napkin. That was it. No grand pickup line, no charming smirk. Just a quiet act of kindness. It felt safe. So I let myself fall. We married 2 years later. I thought I was joining a family, his family. The Whitmores were established, tight-knit, and respected in our town in upstate New York. His mother, Judith, was the type of woman who always wore pearls, even to the grocery store. His sister Evelyn had a son before I did, and made sure I knew every parenting book I should be reading. They called me modern with a thin smile and offered backhanded compliments like, "You're so brave to work full-time with a baby, must be hard not being there." Still I tried. I cooked for the holidays. I bought gifts that were never quite their style. I smiled through their garden brunches and inside jokes. And when Jack and I finally had our daughter, Lila, I hoped that maybe, just maybe, they'd soften. But there's something you should know about the Whitmores. They don't soften. They study you. They smile while they measure how far beneath them you fall. And I fell. Harder than I ever saw coming. It started with a dinner. A simple, Sunday dinner invitation at Judith's house. Lila was barely 1, and Jack had been coming home later than usual. His excuse was always the same. Work's a mess. The quarter's ending. The partners are pushing me. I wanted to believe him. I did believe him. That night, I remember dressing Lila in her soft yellow onesie with the daisies, the one Jack said made her look like sunshine. I wore a navy dress I'd bought on clearance. Judith liked conservative cuts, and I thought maybe if I made myself palatable, she'd ease up. We pulled into the driveway. Jack got out first, barely waiting for me to unbuckle Lila's car seat. When I stepped inside, Judith didn't even look up. "Dinner's on the table," she said, setting down a platter. No hug. No greeting. Just ice. I took my place next to Jack, bouncing Lila in my lap. The table was full: Judith, Evelyn, her husband Greg, their son Caleb, and Jack. Just me and Lila, outsiders to the right. The conversation rolled past me like I wasn't even there. Golf tournaments, private school rumors, something about Evelyn's new yoga retreat. I chimed in once. Lila just said her first full sentence this week. Silence. Then Judith raised her wine glass and said, "To family. I's never meeting mine." That night, when we got home, Jack seemed restless. He didn't undress. He just sat at the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. "What's wrong?" I asked, placing Lila in her crib. He didn't answer at first. Then, after a long pause, "I need you to stop trying so hard." My breath caught. "What?" "With my family," he said. "You make it uncomfortable. They don't know how to respond when you overshare." I stood still, heart pounding. I talked about Lila. "Yeah," he replied, not looking at me. "It's just too much sometimes. They don't like emotional scenes." I wanted to scream, "What scene?" But instead, I just nodded and turned off the light. In the dark, my hand reached for his. He didn't take it. The unraveling began slowly. I started noticing things. Small things. Jack took calls in the hallway now. Whispered, "Just a sec," and slid into the garage with his phone. Lila's daycare started calling me about payments. Jack had always handled it before. He used to leave his laptop open on the kitchen counter. Now it was locked with a password. But the thing that made my stomach twist happened 2 weeks later. I came home early from work. Lila had a low-grade fever, and I needed to grab her meds. Jack was supposed to be at the office. His car was in the driveway. I found him in the kitchen, shirt untucked, holding 2 wine glasses. One half full. One smeared with lipstick. He froze. My eyes dropped to the counter. There was a bottle of Merlot open. Judith's favorite. Before I could speak, Jack said, "It's not what you think." The words were so fast, rehearsed. And that's when I knew. It was what I thought. I left the house with Lila, told Jack I needed time. He didn't argue. He didn't follow. That night, I stayed at a hotel. Alone. staring at the ceiling with my daughter beside me, hot with fever. At 2:17 a.m., I got a message from Evelyn. It wasn't a question. It wasn't concern. It was a photo of Jack, arm in arm with another woman at what looked like a charity gala. The caption? Thought you should see what everyone else already knows. And that was the moment the illusion shattered. Jack hadn't just betrayed me. They all had. After that night in the hotel, I didn't go back. I told myself it was for Lila's sake. Her fever, the stress, the need for space. But deep down, I knew something had broken in me. Something that wouldn't click back into place, no matter how many apologies Jack offered. Not that he offered many. 3 days passed before he even called. He didn't ask how Lila was feeling. He didn't mention the wine glasses or the woman in the photo. He just said, "You're overreacting. This is family. You don't throw that away." I didn't respond. Because what he didn't realize was, I hadn't thrown it away. They had. I spent the next week in quiet war mode. Lila napped while I combed through our shared accounts. I started pulling receipts, text logs, credit card statements. The thing about Jack was he was arrogant. Arrogant men leave breadcrumbs. Especially when they think no one will ever follow them. It didn't take long. The lipstick on that wine glass? It wasn't Judith's. It belonged to a woman named Alina Carson, a PR director who worked with Jack's firm. I found her name on a restaurant receipt, the Emerson Club, $213, dinner for two, 2 days before our wedding anniversary. Jack had told me he was on a late call with Tokyo. Tokyo apparently had a preference for lobster and Pinot Noir. But what made me feel like I couldn't breathe was a booking confirmation I found forwarded to Jack's private email. A weekend getaway. Paid by Judith's Foundation. Guest names, Jack Whitmore and A. Carson. They weren't just covering for him. They were sponsoring him. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I called my sister. Her name's Maya. She lives in Portland. We'd drifted over the years, partly from distance, partly from my always needing to prove to Jack's family that I was good enough for them. I had traded loyalty for silence. I needed that back. "Hey stranger," she said when she picked up, her voice warm but cautious. And I cracked. I told her everything. The photo. The receipts. The years of tight smiles and colder dinners. The lies. The wine glasses. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she said one sentence that wrapped around my chest like armor. "Come home." The next morning I packed. Not all of it, just the essentials. Clothes. Birth certificates. Lila's favorite stuffed giraffe. I left behind the Whitmore silverware and the pearl necklace Judith gave me for our second anniversary that came with the line, "Every woman needs something classic to distract from louder features." I took my daughter and drove to the airport. I didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. The silence would do more damage than words ever could. Maya met us at the gate. She knelt in front of Lila and whispered, "You're safe now, sweetheart." And I believed her. Because for the first time in months, I could breathe. We stayed with Maya and her partner, Leo, in their 2-bedroom townhouse outside Portland. It smelled like sage and sourdough bread. The opposite of Judith's lemon-polished floors and curated perfect candles. It smelled like real life. But just because I'd left didn't mean they were done with me. 3 days in, I got a message from Judith. It wasn't long. "You've made your point. Don't drag this into the mud, Dana. There's a family name to consider." There it was. Not an apology. Not concern for her granddaughter. Just preservation. Of the Whitmore image. The legacy. I stared at the message. Then deleted it. Because Judith was wrong about one thing. I wasn't dragging anything into the mud. I was digging them out of it. While Maya watched Lila, I started documenting everything. I printed the receipts. I backed up emails. I compiled texts and voicemails. Then I contacted an attorney, one with no ties to Jack's firm or Judith's foundation. Her name was Alicia Grant, and she was a lioness wrapped in silk. When I finished explaining, Alicia leaned back, fingers steepled. "Infidelity alone doesn't win a case," she said calmly. "But coordinated financial deception, emotional distress, and evidence of reputational sabotage." She smiled. "That does." What about custody? I asked, my voice cracking for the first time. She leaned forward. You have a daughter whose primary caregiver has been her mother. A father who has a documented affair. A family that used nonprofit funds to cover it. And a wife whose career was quietly undermined. If they want to fight, let them. Let them. That became my silent chant. Jack sent his first real message the next night. I didn't think you'd actually leave. That was it. 7 years of marriage. And that was what he opened with. He didn't say I'm sorry. He didn't say come back. He said I didn't think. And that told me everything I needed to know. Then came the phone call that changed everything. I was at Maya's kitchen counter, filling out paperwork for the custody claim, when my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I answered. Mrs. Whitmore? A woman's voice. Shaky. Mid-40s maybe. Yes. My name is Ellen. I used to work for the Whitmores. As a housekeeper. I froze. Used to. I was let go after. After I found something. Something I wasn't supposed to see. She paused, breathing fast. Judith has files. Photos. Records. Things she keeps on people. I think she has one on you. My heart nearly stopped. Why are you telling me this? Because I was the one who saw her delete your messages to Sophia. I saw her showing your mother-in-law's friends a fake email from you. One where you supposedly admitted to cheating. But it wasn't real. I saw her type it. The world tilted. You saw her forge messages from me? I whispered. Yes, she said, her voice breaking. And she's done it to others. You're not the first. But you're the first to leave. I ended the call and sat there in stunned silence, gripping my phone like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a setup. And it had been happening longer than I ever guessed. But now? Now I had a witness. Now I had fuel. Now I had fire. You think when you leave someone, really leave them, that the worst part will be the absence. But it's not. The worst part is what rises in the silence after. The memories, the rewrites, the second guessing. It all crawls out of the cracks and whispers. Maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe you should have just stayed silent like everyone else. But then you remember. The wine glass. The fake emails. The woman calling from a blocked number to tell you your in-laws kept a file on you. And suddenly, silence becomes fuel. Alicia moved fast. She subpoenaed Judith's foundation records. She had our financial forensics team go through every travel receipt, every business retreat, charged under family grants. And then almost by accident, we struck gold. An anonymous envelope arrived at her office. Inside were photographs, grainy but damning. Jack and Alina at the lake house upstate. Same house where he'd taken me for our first anniversary. Same deck. Same chairs. Only this time, Judith was there too. And Evelyn. Smiling. Holding Lila. My daughter. In the background. When Alicia showed me the photos, I couldn't breathe. Not because of the affair. We were past that. But because they had Lila there. They took my daughter to a weekend getaway with his mistress. Without telling me. Without consent. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was erasure. That night, I called Jack. He picked up on the second ring. Donna. I saw the photos. Silence. You brought my daughter to a house where another woman was playing family with her. Without my knowledge. Without my consent. His voice was quiet. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He sighed. And I heard the mask slip for just a second. You left, Dana. I had to keep things stable. My mother said it would help. I closed my eyes. Stable? Or replaced? More silence. I want full custody, Jack, I said. No more supervised weekends. No more surprise visits. You made your choices. His voice turned bitter. You think you can take her from me? No. Y whisperat. You already gave her away. The next week was a blur. The witness, Ellen, gave a full sworn statement. Judith tried to file a defamation claim. It failed. Turns out, Ellen had copies of the forged emails, one she secretly saved on an encrypted flash drive. Afraid that one day someone would need proof. That someone was me. We filed our counterclaim. Custody modification. Restraining orders. Civil suit for reputational harm. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about truth. But then something happened I didn't expect. A letter arrived. Real paper. No return address. Handwritten in shaky cursive. Inside was a single page. Dana. I saw what they did to you. I saw it because they did it to me too. Judith isn't who you think she is. Jack isn't either. And if you want to know why he really married you, look at the trust fund clause. A friend who paid the price. I stared at it, numb. What clause? I called Alicia. She pulled up our prenup. We hadn't signed it under pressure. It was clean, simple. Or so I thought. But tucked away in a paragraph under beneficiary conditions was a line I had never really read before. In the event of legal separation, Jack Whitmore retains access to 100% of his family trust unless separation is initiated due to marital misconduct proven in court by the partner. My mouth went dry. What does that mean? I asked. Alicia looked grim. It means if you had quietly walked away, he would have walked away with everything. But if you prove misconduct, affair, emotional manipulation, reputational sabotage, he loses access. That trust reverts to Judith. So, Judith had everything to gain if I left quietly. Exactly. I suddenly saw the whole picture. The cold dinners. The staged ambushes. The silent dismissal. The photo Evelyn sent, right when I was vulnerable. It wasn't just cruelty. It was strategy. If I broke, if I left in shame, they all won. They'd framed me as unstable, emotional, manipulative, the outsider who cracked under pressure. And I almost did. But instead I started documenting. Instead, I started fighting. And now they were the ones caught in the web. 3 nights later, I got a knock at Maya's door. It was Evelyn. She looked nothing like her usual polished self. No blowout, no lipstick, just swollen eyes and trembling fingers. I shouldn't be here, she said. Maya crossed her arms. You think. But I let her in. Because I needed to hear it. Evelyn sat on the edge of the couch, her voice cracking as she spoke. She did it to me too, you know. When I got pregnant at 19. She said if I didn't marry Greg and keep the baby, I'd be cut off. She made me sign an NDA before I was even 20. She controls us all, Dana. But I never thought she'd do this to Lila. That's why I sent the photo. I wanted you to see. I needed someone to finally blow it all up. I exhaled. So help me finish what you started. You don't realize how many masks someone wears until one of them slips. Then it becomes impossible to unsee the rest. After Evelyn showed up that night, I didn't sleep. I just sat at the dining table, fingers pressed against my temple. A cup of tea gone cold beside me. Evelyn had cried. She had begged me to end it. But most of all, she'd confessed something I couldn't stop replaying. She never loved anyone she couldn't control. Not her. Not Jack. Not me. Evelyn agreed to testify. It took some work. Alicia filed a formal motion to submit her testimony as a witness with first-hand knowledge of Judith's manipulation, including a sworn affidavit and supporting documents. Evelyn didn't flinch. She handed over the original NDA Judith forced her to sign at 19. It was legal. It was real. And it had Judith's signature, pressed in perfect ink next to a trembling, immature scrawl that read Evelyn Whitmore. She also gave us emails, notes, a calendar that showed Evelyn was present the day Lila was taken to the lake house with Jack and Alina. And most importantly, she gave us a recorded voicemail Judith left her that ended with, "If Dana wants to burn this family down, she should be prepared to go down with it. I have files. And friends. She'll regret it." The court date was set. I was nervous. Not because I doubted the evidence. We had more than enough, but because I knew Judith. She was the type of person who would never come without a final move. A final card hidden up her crisp, linen sleeve. And I was right. 3 days before the hearing, my mother called. She rarely does. "Dana," she hesitated. "You need to prepare yourself." "For what?" Judith's lawyer contacted me. I don't know how they found me. But they offered me money. To testify. Against you. I sat in silence. And I whispered. I told them to go to hell. That was when I finally cried. Because for once, someone in my life didn't take the deal. The courtroom wasn't glamorous. It was pale and dry and smelled like wax and recycled air. Jack didn't look at me when I walked in. Judith did. Her face was stone, her hair perfect, her pearls glinting like teeth. She hadn't come to negotiate. She'd come to crush. But so had I. The hearing began. Our attorney laid it out cleanly: documented manipulation, forged emails, child endangerment, improper financial activities under the Whitmore Foundation. And now, collusion to silence me through coercion of external witnesses. Then Alicia said 5 words I never thought I'd hear in open court. Your Honor, we call Evelyn Whitmore. Every head turned. Judith flinched. Jack blinked as if hearing his sister's name broke something he'd been holding together. Evelyn walked up slowly, but she didn't falter. She took the oath. She sat down. And then she told everything. From the NDA and the forced marriage, to the way Judith tried to manipulate her into believing that I was unstable, hysterical, unfit to raise Lila. She even admitted she had been told to take Lila away for the weekend, to help Jack transition into a new normal. And then she said, Dana wasn't leaving the family. The family was trying to push her out. Judith's attorney tried to shake her. Are you saying your mother manipulated multiple people for decades without consequence? Evelyn replied without hesitation. I'm saying she's built a life out of doing exactly that. Why speak now? She turned toward me, voice steady. Because she came for Dana the same way she came for me. But Dana fought back. And it reminded me that I wasn't crazy. I was just controlled. The judge didn't interrupt once. But Judith wasn't done. She rose from her seat like she had nothing to fear, asked to address the court personally. Her voice was cold. This is a smear campaign. I've spent my life building my family's reputation. I protected Jack. I protected Lila when Dana abandoned them. I never abandoned them. I snapped, standing. The courtroom murmured. Mrs. Whitmore, the judge warned. Please sit down. I did. Judith smiled as if she'd just proven a point. But then Alicia stood. Your Honor, we request to play a voicemail left on Evelyn Whitmore's personal device. It demonstrates Judith's intent to silence opposing voices in this case. The judge nodded. The courtroom filled with Judith's voice on speaker. If Dana wants to burn this family down, she should be prepared to go down with it. I have files. And friends. She'll regret it. You could hear a pin drop. The mask shattered. The final witness was Ellen, the housekeeper. She wore a modest gray sweater and clutched her purse like armor. But her voice didn't shake once. She described everything she saw. The fake emails, the forged messages, the shredded documents, the visit to my office. When asked why she came forward, she looked at me. Because I saw a mother trying to hold her life together, while a family tried to make her disappear. And I couldn't live with myself if I didn't tell the truth. When the hearing ended, the judge didn't need time to deliberate. Jack was found in breach of marital trust and exposed as complicit in emotional sabotage. Full physical custody was granted to me. Judith was fined for misuse of foundation funds and evidence tampering. Jack lost access to the Whitmore Trust. The clause held. The inheritance vanished. But that wasn't even the real victory. The real victory was walking out of that courtroom holding Lila in one hand, and the truth in the other. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't looking over my shoulder. There's a strange calm that comes after you win a war. Not peace exactly. Just quiet. A space where the noise finally settles, and all you're left with are the pieces. What you saved, what you lost, and what was never yours to begin with. After the court ruling, I thought that quiet meant safety. But I'd only cleared the smoke. The fire hadn't gone out yet. The media attention was immediate. Margot Lane's article had already cracked the public image of the Whitmore family, but the court's decision was the finishing blow. Jack disappeared from his firm's website within 48 hours. Judith stepped back from her foundation. Evelyn was left picking up pieces of her own life, and for once, she didn't look relieved. She looked hollow. I stayed out of the public mess. Declined interviews. Closed my social media. Told friends I needed time. And I meant it. Because even though I had custody of Lila, even though Jack's financial grip was shattered, there was still a question I couldn't shake. Why did he really marry me? That question lingered in the back of my mind like a splinter. Too small to cause a wound, but too deep to forget. Until someone reached out with the answer. It was a letter, folded inside a manila envelope, slid under Maya's door early one morning. No stamp. No return address. The handwriting was familiar. Jack's father. The man I hadn't seen since our wedding day. Dana. There are things I should have said years ago. Things I kept quiet because I thought I was protecting you. But I see now that silence only protected her. Judith has always been strategic. But she was never supposed to choose your marriage. Jack had a debt. A personal one. From before you met him. He needed out. Fast. Judith said the trust wouldn't unlock unless he settled down. Publicly, quickly, and with someone who could clean his image. You were that person. He wasn't supposed to fall in love with you. But he did. And then he was too weak to leave you. Or protect you. That's his burden now. Not yours. I'm sorry. I never deserved your kindness. But I hope you can accept this truth. She built a legacy on controlling lives. Yours wasn't the first. But I hope it's the last. Richard Whitmore. I read it 3 times. Jack had debts. Judith had the strings. And I was the puppet dressed as the savior. It all made sense now. The rushed proposal. The way Judith had taken over the wedding planning like it was a political campaign. The perfectly timed gifts of approval and passive-aggressive acceptance. They hadn't just let me in. They'd installed me. Like wallpaper. To cover the mold. Alicia verified it quietly. A friend of hers pulled old financial records. Jack had been involved in a real estate deal gone sideways just before we met. His silent partner in a shady development project had sued him privately. Judith paid the debt. But not without terms. I didn't cry when I found out. I didn't rage. I just watched Lila playing on the rug and thought, thank God I got her out. She would never be used as an image, a brand extension, or leverage in a silent war between ambition and affection. She would be free. A week later, I got a call. It was Alina. Her voice was softer now. Tired. I heard what happened. I'm sorry, she said. For real this time. I didn't answer right away. Then, why are you calling? Because Claire's asking about her father, she said. And because I don't know what to tell her. You could tell her the truth. She hesitated. I'm afraid it'll ruin her. No, I said gently. It'll protect her. Silence. Then, would you ever consider letting the girls meet one day? I looked out the window. Lila was spinning in the backyard, arms wide, sunlight bouncing off her hair. Maybe, I said. Someday. When they can decide for themselves. But life, of course, had one last card to play. A week before Lila's birthday, a package arrived at Maya's door. Inside was a framed photo. Lila as a baby, held in Judith's arms. On the back was a note. She was the only real joy I ever knew. I hope one day she'll understand that. G. No signature. Just the letter. Judith. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't manipulation. It felt honest. And that somehow hurt more. I didn't respond. Some truths don't deserve a reply. But I kept the photo. Because someday Lila will ask questions. And I won't lie to her. Not like they lied to me. They say when something burns to the ground, you don't start by rebuilding right away. You stand in the ashes. You grieve. You breathe. And then, only when you're sure you're ready, you sketch new blueprints. That's where I was. Not broken. Not bitter. Just beginning again. 3 months after the final hearing, I moved Lila and me into a small cottage at the edge of town. It wasn't much, creaky floors, ivy growing wild over the porch railing, but it was ours. No Whitmore fingerprints. No Judith Hudhev curtains. Just space to grow. Lila loved it. She called it our castle. Even though the only royal thing about it was the chipped doorknobs. And I loved it too. Because it was quiet. Because no one was watching me anymore. Because I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I started painting again. Not for money. Not for approval. Just because. In the afternoons, after Lila's preschool, we'd sit at the little table by the window and finger paint until the light faded. Her hands would get covered in purple and orange and gold, and she'd say things like, Mommy, this one's a dragon who eats mean people. I'd just smile and say, I hope he's hungry. One morning, a letter arrived. No name on the envelope. Just my address. The handwriting was familiar. Too neat to be random. Inside was a document. A legal will. Judith Whitmore's. She was dead. It took me a few minutes to read the letter that came with it. Done. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. This is not an apology. I don't have one left in me. But it is a record. Everything I ever built, every dollar, every property, every reputation, was based on power, control, legacy. I confused fear for respect. I confused silence for peace. You broke that. You shattered the illusion. And for that, I'm giving you the one thing I never gave anyone else. Control. Included is the deed to the Whitmore Lake house. The one Jack used. The one you were never invited to. It's yours now. No strings. Just keys. You can sell it. Burn it. Or let your daughter run barefoot through the rooms like I never let mine. Whatever you choose, let it be yours. Judith. I stared at the letter for a long time. Not because I wanted to believe it was redemption, but because it was the closest thing I'd ever get to a confession. Judith hadn't changed. Not really. But maybe in her own twisted way, she understood now what she'd destroyed. Or maybe she just wanted to leave one final chess piece behind. I didn't tell anyone about the letter for a week. Not Maya. Not Alicia. Not even Jack, who had quietly moved states away, his name fading from every headline like dust and wind. When I finally told Maya, she didn't ask what I was going to do with the house. She just said, whatever you choose, make sure it's for you. So I waited until Lila was asleep one night. Then I drove to the lake house. It was empty, silent. The same deck where Jack once stood with another woman. The same porch where I'd been erased. And yet, I walked room to room barefoot. Not out of sentiment, but out of defiance. I let the floors creak. I let the cold air bite. I let every memory crawl across the walls like vines. And then I did the most unexpected thing of all. I opened all the windows. Let the air in. Let the ghosts out. Let the house breathe. A month later, I turned it into something new. Not a retreat. Not a museum to betrayal. But a space for women like me. A place where women rebuilding from emotional and financial abuse could come, rest, and remember who they were. I called it the Blue House. Because sometimes, healing starts in quiet sadness. And sometimes blue is not broken. It's beautiful. The day of the grand opening, I stood outside with Lila on my hip. Maya was there. So was Ellen, Evelyn, and even Alina, with Claire, who now knew the truth. And as I looked around, I didn't feel small anymore. I didn't feel erased. I felt whole. Not because Judith gave me the deed. Not because Jack was gone. But because I had built something that wasn't for their approval. It was for us. So here's what I know now. Sometimes, the worst thing someone can do to you is not the lie. It's the story they try to write for you. Judith tried to write mine. So did Jack. But I rewrote it myself. And this time, no one else holds the pen.